I'm making a Bone Mjolnir today. So I'll go over all the steps and the equipment and I'll show you how I make a Bone Mjolnir. Here I have these cuts of cow bone that I just buy from the supermarket, and they're sold in the pet food section in the freezer, or the chilled section of the pet food section at the supermarket. And they're sold as dog bones, and they're cheap, and they're shin bone from a cow. It's pretty thick, good piece to work with, and they have pretty good flat surfaces. A vice to work with. If you already have a workspace or a vice, well, that's well and good. But if you don't, if you're starting out with nothing, really you're going to need something like this. So it's a vice, and it can be clamped down on any flat surface that you can get under, cutting into the bone and cutting out the rough shape of the bone. Hand saws, the people call it a Dremel. This brand's Fuller. And I mean, it wasn't expensive. It was like $80 with a full kit of burrs and drill bits. And I do actually have a power sander for these attachable bits of sandpaper. They do come with larger pieces. This is just what I've got left. And it's not necessarily, you can use hand sandpaper, it'll just take longer. There is a little bit of cost there, but not a lot, and anyone can do this. We don't need to be, artists or crafters. A few tools and we're good to go. All right, so that's what we need. Now I'm going to get going and start. Let's do it. And you notice that I've already cut that piece of bone in half, so that's one side of the shin bone I'm working with that I cut down the middle, and now it's just a matter of getting the hand tools, cutting that shape out. So starting with the hand saws and the power tools and cutting off those excess bits and getting in closer to that shape. I'm using the mixture of the hand saw and the Dremel with the cutting disc. And that cutting disc works pretty well too. So yep, using a mixture of that and the hand saws, cutting off those excess bits. Getting in closer around that sketch, around the outline of the Mjolnir. As you can see here, I'm wearing dust mask and safety glasses. What you can't see just off screen is that I'm actually wearing earmuffs as well. So now I'm working with a rough sandpaper head and sanding off all those jagged, hard, sharp edges, smoothing it off, starting to get that shape that we want, that Mjolnir, and getting into those corners and really getting those smooth, cutting out all those jagged, hard, sharp bits. And just by the way, working with a vice, careful not to over tighten it, because bone is a bit brittle, and I've done that before where I've over tightened the vice and it's cracked the bone in half and broken it. So it only needs to be tight enough so that it holds the bone in place. It doesn't need to be super tight. That's a different head. That's a finer sand head there, a burr, so it's a finer grit. And again, it's just getting a finer sandpaper head to get in closer, smooth it out. And using that flat head there, it's good to get in that corner, those corners, and get those sharp bits out that I'm doing here. Using that top of that drill bit there, the head, the flat head, it's working really well, and it's taking that surface off, and beneath the surface is really smooth. It's a really nice piece of bone. And then once that's off, getting the sander out, sanding it all smooth with some fine grit sandpaper. Started off with 180 and then moved to 240, or you could go as fine as you want really. And it's starting to take shape. That's looking pretty good. can't really see here, but there can be still a lot, just some small imperfections and blemishes. So just working in those corners, getting all those blemishes out, getting it all smooth, and marking off where I want to drill the hole to put the necklace through to tie it off. I don't have a power drill, so I'm just using the Dremel with a drill bit, an accessory that came with my package, and it's not actually a drill, it's just a diamond coated bit, and I'm just being careful not to go, just to go slowly and not to go too hard. Just don't want to crack the bone. And I think it looks great, really happy with it, turned out well.